What is up, guys? Abixis here, and I am now today doing an Overwatch Season 31 tier list. This is going to be an update over my last tier list, and actually I'm going to change quite a few things on this one comparative to the last one. My opinion has changed on a lot of characters, and I'd like to give you guys what I think is the best for climbing out of the lower elos of the game: bronze, silver, gold, maybe plat, and who I think is the best for solo queuing and getting solo value out of. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to make this one a little quicker because it is an update of the last one. Now, starting with the F tier, I'm going to go with Sombra. Sombra definitely for me belongs in the F tier as far as solo queue goes, because in the lower elos, especially playing solo, you may not get the voice communication and the things you really need in order to get the maximum value out of Sombra, and I just feel like your time is spent elsewhere on a DPS pick. I like Sombra. She's very good in higher elo games where there's coordination, and pro play you see a decent amount of her, but I don't feel like you're going to get the maximum amount of value you could get if you picked somebody else who may give you a little bit more solo carry potential. Also going to put Wrecking Ball in the F tier. Now, unfortunately, he's another one that suffers from lack of team coordination. You could be in the back line disrupting, doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and still not win the game just because he lacks that solo carry potential. If you're a ball master, amazing at the character, you could get value out of him, but I just think your time is spent better on a character that may be easier to get that exact same amount of value out of. Now, Doomfist, I am going to put in the D tier. Doomfist is just not as consistent as some of the other DPSs. He's a lot harder to play. For somebody you're going to get equal, if not better, value out of, and he has a lot more hard counters than some of the easier ones I'm going to put up a bit higher on the list, which is the same reason Widow is going to be in the D tier. Widow, I feel like, is great if you're a master of Widow, but even then, you're not going to be able to pick Widow into every single scenario, and I want to give you guys characters that you could pick every game in almost every scenario and just master them without having to switch, super often. And for Widow, she's such a one niche type character that you're going to get stuck if you really just continue to play her, unless you're an absolute monster. If you're great at Widow, she's good to have in your pool, but I don't think she's the best character to main, especially in low elo, when you need to work on some of your fundamentals. And I will stand by that. And Genji's another one similar to the Widow pick. She is such a high skill cap character, and as is Genji. Genji is great if you're a master of him, but once again, there are just better flankers in the game, which I'm going to talk about later, and he is a lot harder to get value out of comparatively to somebody else. And that's all why Genji suffers. Big blades are awesome. You can see a lot of Smurfs using Genji, but I just think you would be better off putting your time elsewhere, which is what most of these people are down here. I don't think they're awful. I just think that you'd be better off spending your time elsewhere, and that is where Bastion is going to come in. Bastion is possibly the worst hero to one trick or one pick because he has a lot of counters and he's not going to fit in every scenario. Bastion, the Desperation Bastion, is one thing. Insta-locking him every game or picking him a ton of the time probably isn't going to get you as much consistency as you could get elsewhere. Now, I'm going to go all over the place for these next few ones. I just wanted to get these guys out of the way. Let's go with Orisa, who I'm going to put in the B tier. Orisa is one of those characters that is extremely high value, and honestly, even if you're playing in a stack in low elo, I could see her going up to the A tier, but if you're playing by yourself, she may be a B tier, so I'd put her in the high B, low A. She gets a lot of value out of that ult. She's a very good tank to have, and she's not super difficult to play. It's not hard to get a lot of value out of Orisa, but there are some scenarios where if you pick Orisa solo, you may find yourself a little bit vulnerable and feeling like you can't do a ton. Now Hanzo is going to be moving up in this tier from last time to A tier because I have realized that if you are a master Hanzo, and if you play a lot of Hanzo, this guy is insane for solo queue. High pick potential, high damage output, does struggle into things like Winston, but at the same time, most things you pick, you're going to be able to fit him into most comps, and I think he is a high value pick, and he's definitely somebody worth learning. People hate Hanzo, I understand that part, but I do think he is worth learning. Now, Pharah, I'm going to put in the A tier as well. I think she's somebody that is really, really good to learn and to be good at because with the hit scan nerf that happened a while back, she is very oppressive if you can get into a match with a comp that isn't going to be good against you. I would not recommend running out the door at first point as Pharah, but if you go out there and realize they're running something like a Junkrat Reaper, maybe pick that Pharah and you could really start getting some pressure down and maybe even get some free value out of it. And you can always switch back if you don't want to stay on it. So I think Pharah is a great hero to keep in your pool. Echo is going up to the S tier. I think Echo is extremely consistent, extremely viable, and good in almost every scenario. She doesn't truly have as many hard counters as Pharah. And even if they do have double hit skin, she could still be very useful if you play to your natural cover. And I feel like she's a lot easier to get away from bad situations than Pharah. She has consistent damage, she has burst damage, she fits into most compositions, her duplicate is extremely strong in a lot of scenarios, and I really feel like if you're going to master a character, you can't go wrong with mastering Echo at the moment. She is quite hard to play, so do keep that in mind. She's going to be hard to get value out of at first, but this is definitely somebody I recommend learning. Reaper, we're going to put him in the A tier as well, especially for these low elo games. He is self-sufficient, he does high damage, he can shred tanks, he's not super hard to play. I would say hard to master, easy to learn. His ult can be extremely high value. He has a get out of jail free card. There's just a lot you're going to be able to get done with Reaper. Zarya also going in the A tier. I know it's a lot of A tiers already, but Zarya is extremely good as a tank. The only reason I say she's not an S tier is because I do feel like there's one pick that's a little stronger than her, maybe two, and also that there are some tank duos you may not want to run her into, and you may run into some queues where somebody's going to lock Hog and stay on the Hog the whole game, or somebody's going to lock Diva and stay on the Diva the whole game. You don't know if that's going to happen. With that being said, I'm going to put her in the A tier. You have high damage, high carry potential, and probably one of the best carry potentials as a tank. And if you're playing with a tank duo, running Rein Zarya is basically free low at bronze and silver, so keep an eye out for that. Zenyatta, I'm sticking by the C tier for this. If you're really good at Zen, he is a high damage output healer, but more often than not, I've found that if you're in low elo on Zen, you are going to get yelled at to switch due to the fact that your other healer may not be putting out as much output as you may like. With that being said, I don't think Zen is a bad pick. I think he's just very middle of the road. I think there are some healers that you are going to get more value out of easier, and will also be able to put your team in better position to succeed. Which moves me on to Mercy, putting Mercy in the B tier. Mercy is about as average as a pick as you can get. She fits into literally almost every single composition. Nobody's really probably going to complain about you playing Mercy, but there are a couple healers that I think you will get higher value out of overall if you're trying to just win the game on your own. That being said, you can't go wrong with the Mercy pick. Ashe, I'm going to move her up to the A tier this patch. I have found Ashe to actually really not suffer as much from that hit scan nerf as I thought she was going to. Bob is a huge ultimate. You can use him to stall point. You could use him to get kills. You can use him to knock people up in the air to get yourself some free kills. And I feel like she is just pretty strong at the moment, with the same way she has been with that slight nerf. But yeah, I still think she's really good. She may be towards the bottom of the A tier, but I feel like if you're good at Ashe, you're definitely safe to continue to play her. Now, higher elo, I would not put Roadhog anywhere near this high, but I'm going to put him in the A for solo queue and low elo because he is really a hard carry tank. Some people don't know how to focus down the Hog, and they will let him just run around free reign picking people. You get 2 picks in a fight, you're probably winning that fight no matter what your team is doing. So I'm going to put Hog in the A tier. I just think he has too much carry potential and too much survivability to be not viable at the moment. Now I'm going to move Winston down to the B. I think Winston is a good tank, is a good pick, and I just think that there are a couple better ones. I really don't think Winston suffers from being bad particularly. I just think that the people I'm putting above him are a decent margin better for you to pick. Winston definitely fits into some comps. If you're running a dive comp, he is obviously one of the better ones to get. You wouldn't mind playing him into Genji or Tracer or something like that. I just think that with how much Reaper I tend to see, I find the Winston to be a little lower value than some of the other things on this list. Torbjorn, I'm moving him down to the C tier. Torbjorn's not the most consistent hero, and if you find people that are easily going to take out your turrets, you may find yourself having a hard time. I think he's got good survivability. His carry potential is alright, and I just think you're relying too much on things that are out of your control, and I don't like to see that for a hero like this. So I think he's alright. He's just not the best. Cassidy, McCree, whatever you guys would like to call him, he's going in the A tier. He's just a little bit worse than he used to be, where he was basically a must pick, but he's still very good. You have the Flash Fan to get people off of you. You have slightly more health than most DPSs. You've got high damage output, a high skill ceiling. A good Cassidy can take over the game. Sigma, S tier. I'm sorry, I think Sigma is one of the best tanks in the entire game for solo queue. Huge ult, mobile shield, self-defense, damage, He's just got almost everything in this kit to make him an absolute force to deal with if people aren't coordinated, which they tend not to be in the elos that we're playing at. Soldier, I debated on putting an S tier again, but I'm going to put him in the very high A. I think he's the same as Reaper, where he is self-sufficient. You don't need to rely on healers as much because you have a heal. He has a lot of damage. He could take duels. He could take 1v1s. I just find that there is a bit more consistency with the Echo, and people tend to not know how to deal with the Echo as much as a Soldier. Soldier can suffer a little bit into certain compositions, and while I feel like he is still extremely good and totally safe to pick, you could probably pick Soldier almost every game. He fits in almost every composition. I think that Echo is just slightly better this patch, but he's definitely very good. I'm putting Brigitte in the S tier. 2-slot jump for Brig. I think that I realized I'm not amazing at support, and I started playing a lot more Brig and realized that I am having a much easier time climbing with Brig than anybody else because you have so much potential to actually carry a game as Brigitte. Now, once you learn how to play her to her fullest extent, she has absolutely great carry potential as a tank. Her ult is very good. The Inspire is awesome. She has a lot of damage, actually, surprisingly, and people tend to ignore you on Brig. So you're going to sit there swinging free damage at their team, and by the time they notice to take care of you, it is too late. Tracer, high A tier, best flanker in the game, in my opinion. Extremely good at taking out healers. If you can get in there and you're good at Tracer and you can wipe their healers, you're putting your team in a great position to succeed. Not much else to say. She's been a great pick for a long time. Ryan, I'm going to put in the B tier. Ryan is alright. Now, there is a time and a place to pick the Reinhardt. Sometimes you just need to, as long as you are playing a high consistency and high value version of Reinhardt. Now, please realize that if you're just going to sit there and hold your shield the whole game, you are really at the mercy of your team. You are going to put them in a position to do things for you, but you are really, really relying on others, which, yes, Overwatch is a team game, but if you're playing solo, sometimes you have to take it into your own hands. And I think Ryan can do that, but it does depend on the playstyle, which is what keeps him a little lower than some of the other tanks above him, which may benefit from a Reinhardt on the team. Picking him himself, I'm not totally sure, is always the best plan. Symmetra, C. I think Symmetra's fine. I don't think she's nearly close to the best DPS you could pick, but she's definitely not the worst. There are some maps and scenarios where I really, really like the Sim, but I don't think she's a consistent hero and someone you could pick all the time. Keeps her down here. She's got high damage. She can shred shields. There's a lot of things that she does well, and I don't have a ton to say about Sim. I think she's all right. The Moira pick, I'm going to keep her in the C tier. Moira is not the highest healing output support in my opinion, but there are the benefit of being able to go damage or heals on her. I tend to see people go mostly damage, which is the reason I don't recommend her a ton, because I feel like it's easy to get trapped in the damage only department, being a DPS. Moira, which your team's going to get mad, blah, 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 blah. Her ult can be useful, but at the same time, it's not as high impact as some of the others, and I think that she's just an okay hero right now. I think that that buff that's coming is going to be pretty good for her, but I still don't think it'll take her anywhere in the top upper echelon. Junkrat is the one that I had the hardest time with, and I really just want to put him pretty low, but I'm going to put him in the low C. I have not been getting a lot of value out of Junkrat, and I've been seeing a lot of Junkrat players just get absolutely abused by the fact that Pharah and Echo are so prevalent right now, and he is so weak against them. Now, I don't think he himself is really awful, but I just think he's suffering at the hands of the other DPS metas right now. Mei is the one I'm going to do next, and I find Mei to be, again, just alright. She has some comps where she's going to work. She is good as a counter pick, but definitely not my thing, I would say, to pick every single game. I don't think she's amazing or god tier. She's just alright. She's fine. You could play Mei, you could win with Mei, but you may want to switch off of her if you find yourself not getting any value. The Lucio, I'm moving him up to a B tier. Man, was I wrong. I mean, I have seen some absolute powerhouses on Lucio, and I have really undervalued team healing and to fit in with all the comps that he fits in with. A good Lucio can truly be an absolute nuisance. You can stall point. You have an AoE heal. You've got a speed boost to cart your teammates back to point. There's a lot of things that he does very well. While I feel like he's not nearly as good as Brig or somebody else that I'm going to put on here in a minute, he's definitely a good pick, and I think I may have crapped on the Lucio a little too much. Diva is going to go in the extremely high A tier. Only reason I have her a little bit lower than Sigma is because I feel like Sigma, if you you can get away with having him in certain compositions that you can't get away with having D.Va in, because Sigma does have a true shield. The D.Va is extremely good for carrying. She's basically a DPS tank. She's got a huge game-changing ultimate, and you could really take, like, if the enemy team has a great Widow, take her out of the game. You could dive their DPS. You could take their supports out. She's decent against most of the tanks. I really think D.Va is a high consistency pick, but please don't just insta-lock D.Va and play her all game if your team needs a shield. Other than that, I think you are safe to play the D.Va at most of your games. Baptiste, S tier for Bap. I think Bap is just absolutely one of the most consistent supports. He has insane healing output. He can be high damage if you're accurate. There's just so much you could do with Bap that other healers are going to have trouble contesting you on. And I just don't think there's a comp you could pick him into where you're going to go, man, we don't want this Baptiste. The immortality field's huge. He's got a lot of great value in his kit, and he's just one of the most consistent, which I think consistency is in reality when you're climbing the biggest thing. How much can you pick this character and master them? You could pick a Bap into almost any scenario. He's never a bad pick, and that's why I put him as high as I do put him. Actually, you know what? Putting him at the top of the whole thing. Baptiste is extremely consistent and awesome. Captain Anna Amari, we're high B tier. I would put her in low A or high B, but I think that she's a tiny bit below A, just because double shield does tend to hurt her, and double shield is so prominent right now. Good Annas can take over games. Nano is huge, but you also have to coordinate that with your team, which could be not so great. If you're gonna DPS Anna, you can do that, but I don't totally recommend it. This is my tier list for right now, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will make an updated one if a patch comes out. Check out the last tier list if you feel like looking at an outdated one. But for now, that is all I got on Overwatch Season 31. Hopefully Overwatch 2 doesn't get delayed again, because I do like making these. So it's getting hard to keep going, guys. I'm going to make a video on that soon, on how to stay motivated with the delay of Overwatch 2 again. With that being said, guys, have a great day, and good luck in your ranked games.